So from the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to Unisa, controversy is rife in the higher education sector. Just this week, NSFAS placed its CEO on special leave as it investigates his alleged involvement in tender irregularities. It comes just weeks after the Higher Education Minister, Blade Nzimande, threatened to place Unisa, the University of South Africa, under administration over alleged maladministration and corruption there. For more on this, let's speak to governance expert Dr Sam Koma. A very good evening to you, Dr Koma. Thank you so much for your time. So, one day you go from an institution denying that anything is amiss, and then you've got the CEO placed on special leave after a scandal that was basically watered down for several days. And it brings into question, does it not, why it is that institution after institution, government entity after entity, department after department appears to be engulfed ever so often by a leadership crisis. What's going on?
Yes, Temekile, thanks for the opportunity. So this basically boils down to the whole issue of a total lapse and failure of governance systems, because these institutions, that is the state institutions, must withstand any external pressure, and also they should be able to live beyond any leader that is appointed to head such institutions. So there should be proper internal control mechanisms that are put in place, and also there should be clear accountability that is executed, and including oversight as well as consequence management. So you've got oversight bodies that are charged with this particular responsibility, and they are expected to ensure that they appoint individuals who are fit and proper in terms of executing the strategic objectives and also the mission underpinning all these state institutions. So what we're observing, especially with NSFAS, is this failure of this system that is expected to be put in place to ensure that everyone adheres to processes, procedures, and policies, including the head of NSFAS, in this instance, the CEO. So you can see that on face value, the CEO is clearly have transgressed in terms of the supply chain management policy that governs NSFAS, and also bearing in mind that NSFAS is governed by the Public Finance Management Act, which prohibits any form of conflict of interest that may take place among those who are involved in the bidding process, either at the evaluation stage or adjudication process.
Quite problematic. I mean, from those denials a few weeks ago that there was even a crisis, today the Sunday Times is running a piece saying, in fact, it's got audio recordings of presentations by 9 bidders for multi-million rand student allowance contracts by NSFAS. And they say those recordings basically prove that Andile Nongogo, in fact, attended and participated in the sessions. And when you hear that, a lot of people who work in government will anecdotally, even when they don't want to speak on record, say that even when the superiors don't attend in person or participate directly in some of these meetings, there's often pressure put to bear or brought to bear on those responsible for the processes to basically alter or enforce a predetermined outcome. How do we get rid of that within public institutions?
A good question, Tembekile. And the only solution to this endemic problem that riddles public procurement lies in the solution provided in the Zondo Commission's final report. In that report, the Commission recommended that there should be a procurement agency that is established by law, of course through Parliament, and that agency must be insulated from any political process and also influence. And that body will operate more similar like the Competition Commission, very independent. It will have its own investigating unit, for example, and also a tribunal unit. And also it will have the authority to take certain steps in the event there are serious lapses and transgressions related to public procurement. And until such time this recommendation is implemented, we may see lesser of this kind of occurrences resulting from how procurement is handled in state institutions.
And important to caveat our conversation tonight by saying that what we are discussing at this stage are allegations which we are expecting will be further ventilated and investigated over the coming days. But more generally, when you look at the scandals, be it in NSFAS, be it at the University of South Africa, which is Unisa, be it within government departments, as you were saying, for example, the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, through a set time frame, explored what can only be described by some as grand-scale public sector corruption, yes, involving the private sector as well. But it makes you wonder when you look at the caliber, shall we say, of the people who are involved and how high up many of those who are allegedly doing this are. You wonder if people think they'll never get caught, or if they know that even if they did get caught, the consequences would be minimal to non-existent.
And that is quite ironic and surprising because, Thembekile, if you follow the reports of the Hawks, the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court, and also the SIU, and very important, the Special Tribunal, you realize that increasingly we have a number of public officials across all the levels and spheres of government that are being arrested, charged, and prosecuted before the court of law. And these reports basically indicate the sheer magnitude of the enormity of this problem of ethical and governance challenges facing state institutions. So we hope that state institutions and those who are in charge of running these institutions will focus largely on ensuring that they strengthen and embed the culture of accountability, oversight, and consequence management. But also, if you refer to the King IV Code on Corporate Governance, is very clear. One of the outcomes of governance must be ethical culture. That should be exemplified, displayed at the level of the board or the council of university and also at the executive level, and thus transcending to the other levels within an institution. So that's what we need to start seeing across the board in terms of ensuring that we are able to have state institutions that are ethical in the manner in which they proceed to execute their business.
What is frightening, though, when you look at the NSFAS issue, when you look at Fort Hare University, where people have allegedly also been killed, well, people have been killed allegedly because they were against corruption at that university, and the mismanagement and alleged corruption at Unisa, is that much of that then interferes potentially with the future of this country, because once you start to mess with education, the consequences may in fact be felt years after many of these people have left these institutions, and they impact the lives of people directly. I mean, if you're messing with payouts for students who need government funding, they can't turn to anyone else often to get an alternative.
You're right, Thembekile. Hence, we need to get rid of this culture of impunity that seems to have permeated all levels of state institutions. It's high time that people are held accountable for their omissions or decisions that are reckless in nature and their actions that caused, as you said, enormous implications and also unnecessary disruption to the lives and the well-being of ordinary people on the ground. So that speaks to the kind of leadership that gets appointed at the levels of, as I said, at the board and also the council. Are these people fit and proper persons to execute the strategic objectives of these institutions? So if you look at how university councils are constituted, the Minister for Higher Education is granted authority in terms of the Higher Education Act to appoint not more than 5 persons who are normally referred to as ministerial appointees to serve in these university councils. But if you look at the Unisa case, we need to also ask the question, if the independent assessor has recommended the dissolution of the council and also appointment of an independent administrator to take charge of the affairs of the university, where is the minister? Why is the minister also not held accountable or fall on his sword? Because he makes these appointments of members of council. They sit in the council together with the rest of the other council members to see to it that there's proper governance and also these universities are able to carry their mandate as per the Higher Education Act and all of this. So I'm saying in terms of the accountability ecosystem, the minister cannot be a referee and also a player at the same time. It is high time that the law is reviewed and also amended to respond to and also cater for the contemporary situation that we are facing.
I thank you for your time. Thank you so much for being on News at Prime tonight.